Hello, everyone, and welcome to Unscripted. This show is powered by Print World, the only non extractive platform built by us, owned by you. Tonight on Unscripted, we're sitting with a story that doesn't get polished for pitch decks. I went blank. Oh my goodness, we're going to have issues. I think it's the mountains, but let me go ahead and start over. Tonight on Unscripted, we're sitting with a story that doesn't get polished for pitch decks. This is the kind of journey that rarely gets told in full. The kind built through rejection, self reckoning, and the quiet decision to keep going when walking away would have been easier. It starts with stepping off the traditional path, leaving college when the system no longer fit, being labeled too much, too outspoken, a loose cannon, and rooms that reward compliance, getting fired, failing publicly, building a company no one wanted, and learning that belief alone doesn't pay the bills. It includes being laughed out of investor offices, sitting in silence afterward, hearing no so many times it starts to echo, being told an idea is impossible by people who profit from staying comfortable. But this story isn't just about business. It's about choosing sobriety and discovering that clarity can become a competitive advantage, about waking up without numbing and realizing discipline compounds faster than chaos ever could, about mental health, sleepless nights, and the lonely hours when founders wrestle with doubt, pressure, and responsibility, both their own and the people they love. It's about resilience that isn't loud, strength that isn't performative, and perseverance that shows up long after the applause is gone. This is a conversation about grit, recovery, leadership, and the reality of building something meaningful when the odds are stacked against you. So tonight we go unscripted with the one and only Darren Marble.
What's up, Leslie? How are you? Thanks for
Darren,
having me
I am
on.
so sorry for the mishap,
No
technology.
apologies needed. That was a phenomenal intro. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on. First of all, very excited to have you share your story, what you're building, all of the obstacles that you faced. So really, really appreciate you having you on the show today.
Of course, it's great to be here. I'm excited to get this ball rolling.
Yes. Okay. So you have a lot of depth to your story. I mean, there are so many times I think in your life after doing research and reading about your story that you probably could have given up, throw your hands up in the air and be like, you know what? I am done. I am out. But you continued. So, one of the questions that I have to kind of open up the segment, who were you trying to become before life started stripping things away? And who did you discover underneath once it did?
When I was younger, I'm originally from the Bay Area. I came down to Los Angeles to go to school. I attended UCLA. I had no concept of what I wanted to do as an adult, as a young adult, in fact. And my mom is somebody I've always looked up to and admired, and she was a social worker, licensed clinical social worker. I always thought she was smart. She was good with people, was able to problem solve, and I had a good upbringing and a good family. So I thought I'll major in psychology. But beyond that, I didn't have any idea of what I wanted to do with a career in life. I didn't have any ambition to be a founder, an entrepreneur, any of it. And I ended up getting sidetracked and dropped out my 5th year at UCLA. Developed some bad habits in college. I was a big pot smoker, and I dropped out of school to grow marijuana, of all things, and that was my maybe first entrepreneurial endeavor, you could say. Very half baked, pun intended. And when you kind of throw yourself out of the system, whether you think college is good or bad, worthwhile or not, you're kind of forced to go do the next thing. And the next thing required that I pay my bills. I had rent and expenses like anybody, and started doing, odd jobs, medical billing, and working for a tour company. Some of the tour buses you see in LA, celebrity tours, nothing sustainable, nothing long term. I ended up getting into sales. And that was really the first time that I maybe found a calling for myself. And what I realized is I was working for a subprime lender, a mortgage lender called Greystone Financial in El Segundo. And I realized that I had a weird talent, a strange talent for making 300 phone calls a day and being on the phone 4 hours a day. And they had a system, program that would track how many calls you were making, how long you were
Mhm.
with prospective borrowers, setting appointments for the senior loan officers. And there was a part of my personality, my addictive, my obsessive personality, that I found a productive outlet for, really for the first time. I was in my early 20s. And that role, which was a commission only job, no base salary, making $300 alone flat for 6 months, was really transformative for me. And I found a talent and was able to, make the goal of 30 loans closed, or originated, I should say, in 6 months, move into a senior loan position. But that was really the first time that
Mhm.
I recognized that I had some talent that I could use for productive purposes, not selfish purposes, but in this case, supporting the lender, finding borrowers and selling loans to these borrowers and trying to help them, reduce their, monthly mortgage payment, eliminate credit card debt. And that set me on a trajectory that has resulted in, where I am today as a person, as a founder of multiple companies. I still think of myself as a salesman and as a sales-oriented CEO. But it took a couple years and a lot of missteps to find that talent.
So when you were working as a loan officer, I did that too at the beginning of my career, many blue moons ago. At what point did you say or decide, you know what, maybe this is not for me, or I want to do much more than what I'm doing? And then what was like your first venture when you decided to like venture out?
It's interesting because I feel like there's and especially now with AI and all these tech tools, it's just so easy to start a company and it's basically no cost. And I think it's been that way, truthfully, for a few years now. Now with AI, it's so easy, at least to start a business. Doesn't mean it's easy to build one. But I didn't take that path in my 20s. I parlayed my passion for sales into a career in sales. And I got a job after the subprime loan industry, setting appointments for Oracle. And I spent 10 years, I spent
Mhm.
a decade selling Oracle software and services to Fortune 500 companies. And there's a part of me that maybe wishes I had gone straight into the startup world, straight into founding a business in my early 20s, like a lot of young people and some very successful entrepreneurs have certainly done. But I think at the end of the day, I appreciate that decade of time learning the ropes from inside of one of the world's largest, most successful sales organizations and corporations under Larry Ellison. I didn't work for Oracle. I worked in the partner community. These are companies known as resellers. We resell the Oracle software in partnership with Oracle, and then we implement and modify and upgrade the software. And it all costs millions and millions of dollars, right? It's very
Yeah.
expensive for corporations to license this software. It's ERP software, kind of handles your finance, manufacturing, accounting, CRM. And the value of that experience, Leslie, is that I learned how to stick with something for 10 years. And I, kind of went through the ranks of inside sales to manager to outside sales, director, VP of sales, and sold tens of millions of dollars of software and services, and ended up being mentored by some of the most successful people in the community. So by the time I left to start my own company in 2013, I had a pretty good understanding of how businesses operate. I had a great understanding of how to sell, how to qualify, how to originate opportunities. And I had a lot of experience making deals, closing deals. And I think of myself as a deal maker, as a closer. And I think it's an underappreciated skill for founders. But I don't care if you're technical, you're an AI guru, it doesn't matter. If you can't sell, you're toast, right? Your business isn't going to succeed. You have to understand how to sell, how to communicate with people now more than ever. So before I started my first business, I was a salesperson dialing for dollars, setting appointments, going out to clients. And by the way, these were sales cycles that were like 4 to 6 months. In some cases, they were 8 to 12 months. These weren't like one call closes where it's like, you have a problem, here's a solution, let me send you the agreement. It's known as high sales or complex sales. And it's a special type of sales because it takes a special type of thinker and planner and strategist to get a deal across the line. And
Mhm.
that expertise and that's, kind of experience set me up to be a serial founder. It's one path. There's obviously 100 other paths, maybe not 100, let's say a dozen paths. People can go from this career to becoming a CEO or entrepreneur. But now more than ever, I think sales is one of the most valuable skills, if not the most important skill you can have as a founder, in the world today.
I think especially as that are doing social media in this space, you have to understand sales because you have to understand your brand and how to pitch the product because sometimes you are the product and we don't realize that. Now, I know that the road hasn't been easy. You've been publicly rejected, laughed out of rooms and told your ideas were impossible. Did any of that ever make you doubt your own worth while you were building and, becoming a
Absolutely.
founder?
Yeah. I mean, I have a story and I haven't told it much. But, I was laughed out of a room by a very successful venture capitalist named Mark Suster. Originally, he was with GRP Partners, then they rebranded to Upfront Ventures. They're maybe the biggest venture capital firm in Los Angeles. And they just had their summit, the Upfront Summit, I think last week in LA. Um, and my first startup was a social networking site for filmmakers called Film Break. We had an
Mhm,
advisor at the time named Rob Tursek, who was the president of digital for the Oprah Winfrey Network. He was the one, kind of visionary executive we were able to pull in. He may have been a small investor. And, my dream was to go pitch Mark Suster. And so I made this mistake, which I think a lot of first time founders, especially, they make this mistake, is you have this like concept of a hero VC. Um, and Let me tell you, VCs are not heroes. Founders are heroes. VCs can be successful and great, but they're not your heroes. They're not necessarily your friends either, right? They're investors. They're there to return capital to their LPs. That's it. Very transactional, for better or worse. So my dream was to go pitch Mark Suster. He had a blog called Both Sides of the Table, and I thought it was awesome. And he was talking about all the things he had learned as a serial founder and exited founder. And he would give you perspective from the entrepreneur side of the table and then the VCs. And like, here's how you should have your deck, and here's how your deck should be organized and what you want to communicate. And I had convinced myself that I was going to go in and sell this guy on an investment. And well, one thing I learned very quickly is you don't sell investors on investments. It's not a software sale. So there was some rude awakenings and learnings, that things that I thought I knew from selling 30 or $40 million of software don't apply at all. Like, the rules of gravity are totally different. Anyways, I said, Rob, if you know Mark Suster, my goal is to get a meeting with this guy. I've read all of his articles. We got a meeting. We're in his office in Century City, and I describe it as like the pearly white gates of venture capital heaven. It's like on the 50th floor, one of those tall buildings near the Century City Mall. Mark comes to the meeting 10 minutes late. He gets there. He puts his feet on the desk. Like, that's him. He's on his phone, not paying attention. And I didn't really know what to do. So I just started going through the slides because this was my moment. He was not really acknowledging that my team was there. He wasn't acknowledging me. It was as if he took the meeting, because he had respect for the guy that made the introduction, but wasn't interested in what we had to say. I get to maybe the third slide of our deck, and this was probably 2 minutes in, and he looks up for the first time and says, "Okay, I got it. This isn't happening. This isn't going to work. You guys are not the guys that are going to make this happen." And he said, "I know a couple guys down the street that are really in the film business, because you guys aren't really in the business. And if I told them what you're doing, they would take this idea, execute it, and just fucking crush you." And then he literally got up and started walking out of the room. And he looks back at me and he says, "How did you guys get this meeting with me?" And I said, "Oh, like Rob Tursek, he's one of our advisors." He goes, "Yeah, Rob's a smart guy. What's he doing with you guys?" And then he walked out. And that was the meeting. And it was like the biggest punch in the gut. And this was my first company. This was one of my first VC pitches. It's to this day, I haven't had a meeting like that. It was harsh. It was extreme. And, I think to Mark's credit, he turned out to be right. The business ended up failing. We pivoted that company into a marketing agency, which actually, long story short, got me to where we are today. We started generating millions in revenue, but he was right. The business wasn't viable. And, but to be treated like that by someone who I thought at the time was my hero, it sucked. And it was a setback. And we went down to a bar. This was when I was not sober. I was drinking. And we all had a beer, and like, there was just silence for an hour. There was nothing to say. Like, there was no, like, we're going to have a debrief or fix this. It was just like, we just got punched in the fucking gut, told we were losers, and were laughed out of an office. Like, that's basically what happened. And I guess all these years later, you realize that these things do happen. I don't think he needed to be such a jerk. He was a jerk. But I don't resent him. I don't hold it against him. I don't, have some secret desire to go destroy him or show him I'm the best. It doesn't matter. You realize that he's one person. There are thousands of people, that you need to talk with in the course of building your business. And you certainly can't let one or even 100, maybe even 1,000 tell you no. And suddenly you're like, I'm done. But yeah, it's hard to hear that, especially when you're first starting out.
Darren, do you ever look back at that moment and think that that was a pivotal moment in time that needed to happen that would either help propel you to where you are right now?
I don't know that it helped propel me. I think it was a reality check. And I think every founder needs a reality check. And hopefully it doesn't come in that shape or form, for someone who's listening. It's a nicer no. And, by the way, like the common way you get rejected is you get ghosted. Like, that's par for the course. You set up a call, you have the call with an investor, and then you send your deck, or maybe you've already sent it. You follow up again, you follow up 3 times after 2 weeks, you get nothing. That's called being ghosted. That is
Yeah.
typically how a VC or any investor passes on your deal. They don't want to tell you no. Often they don't, because maybe you'll build something valuable in the future. Um, and occasionally they do tell you no, and hey, this is why we passed. But no, I think it was a reality check that one of the most successful investors in LA at the time, and maybe still today, took one quick look at this business and determined instantly it wasn't going to work, or it wasn't a fit for them. And I do think it's important for founders to get feedback on their business. And that was the first of many investor pitches. We ended up raising a couple $100,000 for that company, mostly friends and family. Ultimately, the business did not succeed. The business model failed, and we were forced to pivot into something else that ended up working out quite well. So I would say it was a learning experience, and it's something that, in some way or form, every founder is going to, go through.
Time I come back to the mountains, I have these type of technical difficulties.
It's all good.
For that. I do have a question, because reading your story, you also went into drinking a lot. Was that the starting point, or when was the starting point that led you down that
Yeah.
path, or
So
that rabbit hole of drinking?
I'm sober. I'm a sober human. I'm a sober founder. And I haven't had alcohol for 12 years. I don't
That
smoke.
is freaking amazing.
Thank you. I don't smoke. I used to smoke a lot of weed. I used to drink a lot of red wine. And for the record, I loved it. I loved smoking. I
Mhm.
loved being high. I loved drinking and getting buzzed. And I realized over time it was an impediment to my personal development. So the story there is, as I was starting um, my marketing agency, I was still working for Oracle. And I think even when I pitched Mark Suster, now that I think about it, I still had the day job, which is also an issue, by the way. And I don't think he knew, but maybe he could tell. Um, I wanted to make the move away from my career selling software and
Yeah.
be a full-time founder. And so I hired a business coach, a friend of mine named Adam. And he was a former manager and business mentor of mine. He knew me really well, and he had just started a coaching business of his own. And I said, "Hey, I want to improve my marketing agency, because in the beginning we were flailing. We were doing these really rinky-dink deals for like $2,000, $3,000 a month. Nobody was making any money. My business partner at the time was couch surfing. It was somewhat of a disaster, even though we were closing deals and sending invoices here and there. And by the way, those were crowdfunding campaigns, like Kickstarter, Indiegogo campaigns. So anyways, I hire Adam. We do a weekly call every Thursday, 8 to 9 p.m. And it's basically me griping, just bitching about the things that aren't working in this company.
Mhm.
How I wish we could be doing deals for 10 grand a month, 15 grand a month, because if we were, I could leave my career selling Oracle and I could be a full-time founder. And I think we did this coaching for like 2 to 3 months. And at the end of it, he gave me his findings and recommendations. And what he said is, I've listened to you talk about your challenges and struggles, and you're looking for a business breakthrough. And Darren, for you to achieve your goal of this business breakthrough, I first think that you need to look inward and you need to transform yourself. I said,
Okay.
great. What's the plan? And he said, I think you should quit drinking for 90 days. And I remember feeling really offended by that. And in the moment, like, what? Like, what the fuck? Why do I need to quit drinking? Like, how is that business advice? And
Mhm.
I remember saying to him, Adam, I don't have a drinking problem. And he said, I know. That's why it's not going to be an issue for you. And so he used a little reverse psychology on me. And I took him up on it. I quit drinking for 90 days. I felt good. I decided to go 6 months. I felt great. At a year, I felt just incredible. And then 2 years into my sobriety was my business breakthrough. And since then, I haven't looked back. And so 2 years into me making the decision to quit drinking is when I achieved my goal of being a full-time founder. And I was able to leave my career because the revenue from my marketing agency started to really take off. It started to skyrocket. And the way I describe it, Leslie, is I was a productive person when I was drinking. I had a successful career. I was making good money,
Mhm.
150, 175K a year, sometimes 200K. Um, I was, I'm married at the time and my daughter was on her way. Um, I was probably 95% effective as a human. Quitting drinking moved me to 96, 97%. So it was like 1 to 2% improvement. That's
Yeah.
it. But that 1 to 2% improvement compounds every day.
Mhm.
A little bit, longer hours, working longer, a little bit more focused, a little bit more efficient, a bit more energy in the way I show up, my presence. And that compounding day after day, week after week, month after month was the breakthrough. And because I was able to achieve my dream of being a founder by quitting drinking, why would I go back? On top of that, it's out of my system entirely. So I was in a club in Las Vegas last week. We had this investor mixer at a hangar that's owned by one of my investors. And I don't want to say we got wrangled into going to a club because we were trying to go to the club. We got into Hakkasan. We had a table, 3 bottles of tequila. We were out till 5 a.m. I don't drink. I had a little bit of Red Bull. I had soda water and some lemon, and I didn't miss it. I wasn't like, oh my God, I wish I were drinking. I felt great that I wasn't drinking. And when I woke up, I felt really good, and some of the people in the group were really, really hungover the next day. Not naming names because they're my friends. Um, but I don't miss it. I don't miss, the desire, and I certainly don't miss the hangovers. And it's been fundamental to my, kind of growth as an entrepreneur for sure.
That is amazing. So what did sobriety give you that success never could?
Sobriety gave me the ability to face my anxieties head on and to confront my reality head on. And, maybe it's like a stereotype or like what do you call it? Like people say, oh, like, people drink to escape and they do drugs to escape. And I think there is some truth to that. You know, by the way, I don't think that it's the answer for everybody. I
Yeah.
think look, Elon Musk is microdosing ketamine or mushrooms, and I think he's a fucking genius, and he is. And, so be it. But I do think that for me, being able to put 100% of my time, energy, and focus into my businesses is what was required for me to succeed. And that I was not going to be able to run the companies I'm running with any kind of distraction in the form of hangovers, um, you know, being drunk on the evenings or on the weekends. And by the way, I'm super healthy. I never get sick. Like once a year, I get like a cold. My immune system is on fire. It's like in a good way. It's like rock solid. So all of these things that you just don't realize when you're in the zone of like drinking or smoking, you're sick all the time, or you're tired, or you're hungover, and you miss, you're a little late and don't have the energy. You got to push these calls. I don't deal with that. And I feel like running a business and starting a company is so hard. The odds are against you every time, even in the age of AI. Like 9 out of 10 companies that are started today will fail in a year. So why not give yourself every opportunity to succeed? And for me, that was being able to put my time and focus into my companies to make sure I don't miss those moments, that I convert on the opportunities that I need to convert on, and that I win the deals that we need to win. Sometimes it's like Eminem, you get one shot, like don't screw it up. And that's often true in business. Sometimes there's, one deal changes your life. Just one deal. I mean, I know guys that have made $50 million in a deal, $100 million in a deal, not a lifetime of earning money. One deal, the right time, the right people, the right financing, the right exit. Sometimes that's all it takes. Why risk losing that for, getting drunk on a Friday night at a bar? To me, it wasn't worth it. So I'm staying the course.
I love that. It's not easy, let me tell you, because I do like to socially drink and have a drink once in a while. But lately, I've been going through some stuff and, I have kind of parked having a drink or going to have a drink, and you do feel a lot better. And I think you're more conscious of yourself, what you're going through, and all of that, and all of the above. Now, sometimes another question that I have for you, it's like, going through everything that you've been through, where you are now, when you sit alone at night and the noise fades, what fear still tries to speak the loudest, and how do you quiet it now?
What's interesting is I don't have that fear that I used to have as a founder, and I used to have
Yeah.
a lot of fear. Um, I think common fears that founders have or entrepreneurs, it's probably 5 or 6 things that you keep you up at night. Is what you're doing going to work, right? It's kind of like the overall effort. Like, is my business going to fail? Am I doing the right thing? Am I going to run out of money? It's a big one,
Mhm.
right? If you can't raise money, or you raise money and you run out of it, or you run out of revenue, how am I going to pay myself? How am I going to pay my team? Um, there's a lot of those fears, and I think just through sheer experience, and now I'm a little older, I'm in my mid 40s. What I've learned is that all of these problems, business problems, they can be overcome. They can be solved. Even the worst problems, which would be like running out of money. Like, I think the average founder thinks if you run out of money, that means it's time to quit. Hang up the cleats, you're done. Like, how are you going to operate a business without money? Well, there's a couple things you can do to solve that problem. You can raise more money. You just takes one investor, one check. Maybe it's 10K, 100K. Get one person on board to bridge the gap. Even better, get a paying customer, right? You should, at some point in your business, be solving a problem and getting paid for it. If you're not, there's no purpose to be in business, right? Um, so solve a problem and get paid for it. You can solve through revenue. You can um, take out a loan on your house. You can borrow from your IRA. You can pay fees on credit card debt. These are things that are painful, by the way. These are things that it's never your goal as a founder is to go pull out 100 grand from your retirement account and pay penalties. But sometimes you have to do these things if you believe in what you're doing. And I've been there. Like, I've done these things. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't have those fears. I am of the mindset that any problem that comes my way can be solved. I've been through the craziest shit you could possibly imagine as a founder. In fact, I'm writing a book. I haven't really shared much about it yet, but the title of the book is called Hacked, Stalked, Sued, Extorted: A Survival Guide for the Modern CEO. Tentative title. And any one of those things would probably knock out the average person or founder. Like, if, when I was sued, it cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars. Horrible. My reputation was attacked. Guess what? I'm still here. The lawsuit was resolved. The person who sued me, we're friends. I see her when she comes to LA. We shake hands. We have coffee. All of these things can be overcome. You just have to have, I think, honestly, enough experience where when you're in the hot seat, you keep going. You realize that any problem can be solved, no matter how crazy, how challenging. You just need to, you know, put on your working clothes and fucking hustle. Get going.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't have those fears anymore, and I'm glad, because when you do have those fears, they're crippling. They will compound, and sometimes they start becoming a reality. Like, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you start convincing yourself it's not going to work, or your business is failing and you're not going to be able to fix it, guess what? You might fail and not be able to fix it. So it's a challenge to have the right mindset, but it can be achieved.
Oh, absolutely. You talk openly about anxiety and sleepless nights. At your lowest point, did you ever consider walking away from everything that you've built?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think so, because it's hard. It's
Mhm.
again, it's so hard to start a company and find that product market fit. And it's made to seem easy because you hear like, oh, hey, here's a 19-year-old, like he sold a calorie counting app for $250 million. And you're at your computer thinking, I'm a fucking idiot. Like, how did this guy? But that's 1 in a million, right? And that guy's a genius, and I'm glad it worked for him. Or you're reading TechCrunch, or you're seeing these success stories on X. But on average, it's near impossible to start a company. There's, you look at the companies that have really knocked it out of the park, and a lot of these companies have been around for a long time. Now,
Yeah.
there's Anthropic and some of these, just rocket ships that have come from nothing to being some of the biggest businesses in the world in a few years. But for the bulk of the last 100 years, the companies that are enduring have been around for a long time, and it's rare. So, yeah, I think I've thought about quitting, and actually, it's a good point because it's one of the reasons that I like having co-founders. I have
Mhm.
co-founders in both of my companies, and I recommend having a co-founder to anyone starting a business. Um, Again, hats off if you're a solo founder and you're kicking ass. If you think you want to be a solo founder and live that solo founder life, awesome. But I think the average founder benefits by having co-founders and business partners, because when one of you is down and wanting to quit, the other one is usually like, no, man, like we're right there. Like we're going to make it. Like we just got to do this. Like we're doing so well. You need that support. And that's, to me, one of the most important roles of having a co-founder. Is like in the moments I've wanted to quit, my co-founder has been the one saying, no, man, like you're not quitting. We're gonna keep going. Like we're doing really good. Look at these things we've accomplished. And vice versa. When he's wanted to quit, I'll say, hey, we're kicking butt. Like, so you need that support. So I like the reality of having co-founders, and I think it's something that, founders should really consider if they're starting a company.
I love what you said right there and how you explained it. Because, there's always a saying that in any relationship, whether it's a marriage, a business, etc., the relationship has to be 50-50 in order for it to work. I don't believe that relationships and businesses, sometimes they're going to be, like 40-60, 30-70. And you gave a great example right now of that. It's like when one of you is feeling down low or you can't push anymore, you have the other person to cheer you on, to bring you up and help you and give you that helping hand to keep on pushing forward, and vice versa, because at any given point, one is going to give more than the other. And I think
Absolutely.
you gave a perfect example of that.
It's really important. I just think there is tremendous pressure. You will feel anxiety. You will doubt, the viability of what you're building. You will question everything about yourself. Was this the right decision? And it's often why I say, like, you really do need to be half crazy to want to start a company. Like, you have to be a little bit psychotic, not totally psychotic. I know real psychotic people, and that's not what you want. But
Yeah.
logically, you have to be a little crazy because you're likely to fail. It's probably not going to work. And you're just betting your future income in some amount of time, usually years, right? Because none of this stuff happens quickly. Usually it doesn't happen quickly. Years and years of time before there may be any, outcome or success or stability. The average person would not want this life or this lifestyle. It is brutal, and it is definitely not for everyone. Like I mean, man, getting a paycheck every 2 weeks, sometimes it sounds really nice. Um, on the flip
Mhm.
side, I've had years where I've had $1 million in personal income that I would never have achieved working in the Oracle reseller community, but I've been able to achieve that as a founder of multiple businesses.
Yeah.
And, so like these things are possible, but they're sometimes, they take many years to kind of execute.
Yeah. Building a business is not an easy thing, and if you've helped anybody build one, it's a whirlwind sometimes. It's rewarding, but sometimes, it's like throw your hands up in the air. But I met you through a show that it is licensed exclusively on X, Going Public. So for the people that don't know, Going Public It's not your traditional business show. And correct me if I'm wrong, it's a show that was created to challenge how capital, opportunity, and access actually work. And what the show does, or the series, it allows like everyday viewers to watch founders pitch in real time and for the first time participate in live investment decisions alongside seasoned investors. And when did you create this show? Like, how did this idea come about? I'm asking a lot of questions in one. And at what point did you say, you know what, we're going to pitch it on X? Or how did that opportunity come about for them to license the show?
It's been a long journey, right?
Mhm.
We started the company that is the creator of the Going Public series all the way back in 2018. It's 2026. It's been 8 years.
Wow.
And the original concept was a very simple kernel of an idea, a show like Shark Tank where the viewers can invest. That's it, where the viewers become the sharks. And instead of Mark Cuban or Kevin O'Leary throwing out ridiculous, horrible, egregious terms to founders on national TV, why not let viewers be able to invest in companies at terms
Mhm.
that founders are setting that are more reasonable and maybe provide more upside for the founder and the investor both. And now we have produced 3 seasons of our inaugural show Going Public. The last season was licensed by X. We had the pleasure of working with Linda Yaccarino, who was the CEO of X at the time, who reported up to Elon. We pitched her the show in Dallas, Texas, and she said yes in 2 minutes. And she said yes because we had 2 seasons under our belt. We had the credibility of those seasons. We had done season 1 on entrepreneur.com, season 2 on marketwatch.com. We had invested millions into the production of the show, and we offered to front the production budget once again for season 3. And X was a phenomenal partner. This is a show where we follow the stories of founders, 3 to 4 founders in a season, building their businesses, raising capital. We run them through reality style challenges, and viewers have an opportunity to invest in featured companies while they watch. In season 3, the investment window opened at the end of the season. So there were 5 episodes. There were 3 companies featured. And the investment window opened during the 5th and final episode, which was a live stream finale hosted by Mike Tyson in Las Vegas. And we had 1 million concurrent viewers. And X brought 100 million views to the season. And they really delivered. It was a great partnership, an incredible experience for the founders, for us as the producers and creators of this show. And our mission with these shows, Leslie, is to democratize access to the highest quality alternative investments for small retail investors, not just in the US, but globally. And
Mhm.
it's asking a lot, right? It's hard enough to
Yeah.
produce a show that's entertaining. It's harder to produce a show that's entertaining where we're featuring, great investment opportunities. A lot of the best investment opportunities, they don't need to crowd fund. They don't need $5 million from 5,000 people at $1,000 each. They can raise from anyone. But we have found that this show actually does attract some of these, hard to access founders because they want exposure. They want to tell their story. They want 100 million eyeballs on them personally or their business. They might have product to sell. So that 100 million viewership, those could be customers as well as investors. And our vision for the future is that these shows will go mainstream. And what I mean by mainstream is that they will be licensed by platforms like Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, Paramount Plus, as well as CNBC or Fox Business. We're developing 2 new shows right now, and we are about to take both of these shows out to the market, all tier 1s. And to us, that's the final destination. We've done 3 seasons on digital platforms. And I think it's time that we get these shows onto a platform that has just enormous reach and distribution. Plus, I think it's very timely. Look, the opportunity for viewers investing in startups, it's good timing. And the reason is, look what's happening. Prediction markets are popular. Polymarket,
Mhm.
Kalshi, meme coins. The reality is those are generally bad bets for the user, right? I'm here to tell you, you're not going to get rich betting on the weather, right? Did you hear it? Let me say it again. You watching this live stream, you are not going to get fucking rich betting on the weather from your bedroom. And I'm not either. And Leslie's not either. It's not a scam, but it's a false promise. So, those can be really popular trends and still have bad outcomes for people that trade those contracts. Startup investing is obviously very risky as well, but
Yeah.
you're putting money into a real company that has real intellectual property, real revenues, um, real technology, and maybe proprietary technology, real ARR. That's different, right? And you're betting on people. You're betting on people that have real experience and insights and determination. So I think it's a good time to have shows that allow small investors to participate and buy shares in companies that they love and believe in for $100, right? Not the farm, not your 401k, $100, $1,000, $500. And so part of our challenge is, let's say we get a deal with Netflix. Can we then succeed in sourcing the highest caliber startups in the country? And my position at this moment is that we can, with the partners that we're working with. And I think the distribution will have a lot to do with that as well. But that's our vision for the future, right? It's seeing, poly market odds on CNN is cool. It's not a revolution. Um, being asked to go open a FanDuel account when you're watching the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight, that's cool. It's not a revolution. It's just straight up gambling.
Yeah.
And I think people deserve more than an opportunity to gamble. I think they deserve an opportunity to invest.
I like that. Opportunity to invest. When you see founders raise capital in real time on going public, what does that awaken in you personally when you're
Well, it's
watching it all
exciting. I
play
mean,
out?
it's that was what our vision was for this show, is finding really interesting founders with compelling stories and real businesses, and starring them in a show where we take them out of Mayweather and testing their grit and seeing how they react on the fly when they're sparring with the world's greatest. We've strapped them up to a lie detector test and asked them tough questions.
Yeah.
And that's what makes the show entertaining, right? This show and the shows that we produce as a studio, they're not boring interview shows where it's like, pitch your business and like, okay, here's what I think. And look, there's a lot of knockoffs of Shark Tank. They're all knockoffs. They're never going to be Shark Tank. Anytime you see a show that has a founder pitch a panel of judges that is not Mark Cuban, Kevin O'Leary, etc., that is a lesser version than Shark Tank. And yet most people in the media business, um, some people we know, it's kind of an easy place to go. Like, oh, let's see, here's a panel, and these are some other guys, but they're just not as interesting. It will never be as big. So we've been really keen to develop new formats that are unique, that are compelling. And so when we see these shows out on X getting 25 million views an episode, we're proud of ourselves because we've worked 8 years to get to that moment. And it didn't happen overnight. And there was a lot of rejection along the way, a lot of doubt. We had people tell us it was impossible, it was illegal, platforms would never go for it, we would be sued for this, that. You hear all these things. And so we've certainly gone through the trials and tribulations building this business. And you just have to believe in your vision. And that's what we've done. We've believed in it. We continue to believe in it. And that's why when I go to sleep at night, I don't stress about it because I know what we're doing is inevitable. And I'm not saying it's going to be $100 billion business in 10 or 20 years, but I think it could be very big. I'm confident that there are others that will see the opportunity that we do and come in, and competition is inevitable and healthy. At the moment, I don't believe we have competition, but I do think that this is a space where you're going to see other players emerge. And hopefully there's a lot of these shows, and the producers of these shows, myself included, we do right by the viewer, and we're able to bring the right investment opportunities to the table, because I think that's really the most important factor in the whole model.
I love that. Has there been any founder on the show or any founder's journey that has mirrored your own struggle or your own
Um,
struggles the most?
yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know if it's mirrored my journey, but what I would say is every founder in the show has gone through some, a lot of rejection. Like we had Amy and Ming, the founders of Proven, which was a Y Combinator company. It's a cosmetics company that uses AI to custom formulate the products and chemicals in a skincare solution just for you. So it's like personalized skincare. They were on Shark Tank, and they were humiliated by Kevin O'Leary. Humiliated. He wasn't he was like total jerk, like Mark Suster was to me. And, they didn't let that stop them. But that's rough, to be humiliated and rejected on television and like laughed off of the stage is kind of what happened there. They've been through it. Joelle Wynand, who's the founder of Nutcase, healthier for you chocolate milk, cashew milk, business. She has Ninja, Fortnite gamer, as a partner. And even for her, it's building a consumer business is hard. Even with Ninja, the business didn't go to $10 million overnight. It was a grind just to get to $1 million in revenue. And my sense is she was probably surprised at like how hard it was, even with Ninja, who's got 80 million followers across all his socials, aggressively promoting this brand. It's still hard. It wasn't like a guaranteed like easy win. So I think every founder has, their unique experience with rejection, and it's just at a certain point, like I said, you expect it, and you kind of are surprised when it doesn't happen, because it's coming, and it's just how you deal with it and go over, under, or around the obstacle.
Yeah. Has creating going public healed any part of your own past failures, or do you feel at times it reopens old wounds?
That's a really interesting question. It's been an interesting journey. It's been a long journey, right? We've been at this for 8 years,
Mhm.
and I said to my partner the other day, it feels like we're just getting started. Like this year could be our breakthrough year. If we get a deal with an Amazon or a Netflix or CNBC, and I know we will, it will have been a long journey to get there. It didn't happen in the first year. It didn't happen in the first 2 years, 3 years. I would just say there's a part of me every day that wakes up and I'm just, fortunate that I'm still in this mode. I'm lucky.
Yeah.
This was my dream years ago. Before I was a founder, my dream was to be a founder. I had no concept of how difficult it would be and how challenging it would be. But I'm blessed to have the opportunity to like wake up, get in the hot seat, and give it another go. We're still alive. We're still pushing. We continue to bring in new investors, new partners, celebrities, influencers. We signed a partnership with Paradigm Talent Agency. They represent Sydney Sweeney, Ed Sheeran, and Crush Capital, our studio. Like it's unbelievable. So I'm just happy to be, in the hot seat every day and have an opportunity to build this business. And um, I hope that regardless of financial outcome for me or my investors and my team, and of course, I want there to be some big exit at some point for everyone. Like that's part of the goal. I would be lucky to be doing this 10 years from now if I were in the same position. That's been it's a real blessing to be a founder, to be in control of my destiny, and it's been incredibly challenging, but even more rewarding.
I mean, I think right now where the show is and the you guys get millions of views on it, and I think you guys are heading somewhere. I mean, if you're not already there, it's like when I was looking at the shows. And when I first was introduced to you last year and I was keeping up with the shows, I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys do get a lot of viewership. And to me, I already thought that you guys were taking off. Now, have you thought about, or are you guys pitching right now to any like Netflix, Hulu, or any of those
Yeah,
platforms?
we're about to. We have 2 shows in development, and one I can mention. It's called Kingmaker, and this is a business competition
Mm.
series. Think of like the American Idol for business, where there's uh, a cohort of startups, and the way this show works is that the viewers are voting off one startup a week. After the first week and the first elimination, every startup through the finale becomes investable. Phil Hellmuth, the world famous poker player, is one of the hosts of this show. And this show is being produced by Crush Capital in partnership with Happy Accidents, which is a studio run by Holly Hines and Eric Jarbeau, who are 2 incredible creatives, producers, and have just a phenomenal resume. Shows on Netflix. Eric has 140 producing credits to his resume. Holly
Wow.
Hines has one of the most successful shows on Netflix. And so that's one show. The other show, it's a deal we signed with a production company and studio in New York with one of the biggest influencers in business, and we're not announcing that show just yet. But yeah, we are about to take both of these shows out to the biggest streamers in the world, and I'm confident we'll get a deal. And that may not be, by the way, where we end up. Like, I was talking with another production company in New York earlier, and he's like, well, you take me from Netflix, like you give up this and that and this. And he's right. Like when you take money from a streamer to go produce content, they like to get a lot of ownership in return, ownership of your
Mhm.
IP and ownership of your distribution rights. So, who knows where it goes, but I do think it's important for us to have one or more shows on a tier 1 streamer specifically, because it credentializes the category. And I think it helps cement the category, which is new. And we're calling this category interactive investing, where, a viewer of a show is able to buy into a deal, an alternative investment, a non-public investment, buying shares in a startup, buying a piece of real estate, buying fractional ownership in a watch or painting, for instance. In interactive investing, this is the category we're pioneering, and we're big believers that it is the future. And it's you're going to see shows on a lot of these platforms over the next 5 years.
That is so amazing. So you're just not sticking to one. You want to create multiple and expand. What is next for Darren?
I'm writing this book, and it's been a fun process already. It's a whole nother podcast, Leslie. We didn't talk about it, but I can hint it for the next one.
Yes.
I have a crazy stalker. I have a female stalker, and it's somebody who I don't know and I haven't met except in court. I have a 3-year restraining order against my stalker. She then fell in love with my attorney, started harassing him, sent him 5,000 text messages after he was on a call with her one time for 2 minutes a year and a half ago. And yeah, to my stalker, those texts are going to end up in the book. So, have fun. So I've got some wild stories, and the stalker, of course, I picked up through the show. And I won't go into the detail because I know we're up on the hour, but
You're good.
I've been through some weird stuff, and I've been to court for odd reasons. And, it's like the last thing I would have expected is like starting a business. I'm going to have a stalker. But I do. And she's totally insane. And I have to defend myself and my family from her and go to court. And, she thinks that she's my employee and that she works for me and that I'm her mentor. And by ignoring her, I'm discriminating against her. Absolute madness and chaos. Again, this is a person I don't know. This is not somebody I've dated or someone that worked for me. And I've been in the court system enough now in Van Nuys, and it's like all family law. All of the harassment proceedings and cases, it's like ex-husband, ex-wife, ex-girlfriend, boyfriend. And I'm like, I'm being harassed by someone I literally do not know. and she has made me her target for 4 years for no reason other than, she's a grifter. And she probably wants to get, money to go away. But anyways, so, well, one of the things that's up next for me is I'm in the process of extending my restraining order against my stalker.
Oh my
And I think
goodness.
I'm going to get that this month in March. And I think my lawyer is also going to be successfully added to the restraining order because the judge knows this is not normal behavior and the court needs to hold her accountable.
So not that I want a stalker, or I don't think any of the viewers want a stalker, but how does one get a stalker? Darren, what the heck happened? Like, how
It's a
did
long
this even
story.
stalker come about?
She had a relationship with somebody who was in season 1 of my show. And I'm not
Oh.
going to name him because it's a BS story. And she ended up contacting me about the relationship she had with this individual, who, by the way, she had never met in person. If that tells you anything about this woman, never met him in person, claiming she had an issue with him. And then she latched on to me and she said, well, this guy was in your show and you're the executive producer. So I'm voicing my concern to you. And, you better get on a call with me or I'm going to go to the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. And as she started threatening me and threatening my business as a fiduciary, I had no choice but to take her to court. By the way, this was after she sent me 1,000 ridiculous text messages and inappropriate text messages and weird sexual content, all of it. Okay. Um, and I let it slide. Like I let the craziness slide until she started threatening the business. And then I said, all right, I have to hold this person accountable because I'm a fiduciary. I have a financial responsibility to protect my company. And
Mhm.
she's trying to go to create some bogus PR story that's just totally unfounded. Like I have to defend the business. We've raised millions of dollars. And I did. And I took her to court and got a 3-year restraining order against her. Which, by the way, is very hard to do when there's not a threat of violence. But this case was so ridiculous, and her text messages and pictures and songs were so crazy. The judge was like, yep, this meets the bar for civil harassment. And so I was able to get a restraining order against her. So that's one thing I'm doing is going to court to protect my business, my companies, myself. And but more fun, we're going to go pitch Netflix. We're going to go pitch Amazon and talk to CNBC and Versant. And that's where the real magic is. It's not in the stalking stuff. But since we're doing an X Spaces, I thought it would be fun to mention. And because I'm writing a book about it.
I think that's what makes your story even more interesting. Not that it wasn't interesting, but you have a crazy full-blown stalker. And, sometimes for us, like, especially for me as a female, I'm like, I don't know how you can act that crazy and, think certain things that are not there about men and people on the internet, that it just blows my mind how people could be like that.
It's out of control, and it is one of 4 stories that I'm sharing in this book, and it will come with text messages that she has sent me. She sent my lawyer. It will come with
Wow.
transcripts of the court appearances that I've had to go through. And the analogy is it's just more shit I've had to deal with and push out the
Oh
way.
my
This is not fun. So, like,
god.
part of the theme of the book is like when you're attacked, how do you respond to the attack? Sometimes people try to take your money. Sometimes people try to damage or attack your reputation. Sometimes, they lie, cheat, or steal. Um, Sometimes they attack you and they think that you're in the wrong when you're really not. And so,
Yeah.
any founder, any leader, any person has been attacked in some way. And so, this book is an authentic discussion about different ways I've been attacked, mostly in business. All of my, I could trace it all to me being a founder, and how to prevent attacks. And secondly, if you can't prevent the attack, how do you mitigate it? How do you resolve it? How do you deal with it? What if you have no resources? You have no money. What do you do? What if you have some resources, some money? Then what do you do? Different approach, right? Different team, different strategy. Um, And these are things that generally are designed to distract you. They throw you off course, but you have to get back on course quickly. You can't let these things take over your life or your mind, because they can. And I happen to have some really wild stories, and the stalker one tops it. And I'm excited for people to kind of read this book when it comes out and see what they think. And if they maybe haven't gone through, that exact experience, but hopefully there's some good, actionable insights about how people can avoid that situation or be able to address it if it does happen to them.
Well, good luck with that, Darren. And I know I just no comment. No, I don't know what to say. I haven't had a stalker to that extent, but and never wish that upon anybody. Now, before we leave, do you have a few minutes to do rapid fire?
Let's go.
Okay. So here we go. Private wins or public failures?
If I have to choose one,
One or the other.
private wins.
Grit or grace?
Grit.
Early mornings or late night clarity?
Late night clarity all the way.
Instinct or data?
Instinct.
Building alone or building with the co-founder, which I think you already
Co-founder
answered
for
that.
life.
Comfort or conviction?
Conviction.
Security or freedom?
Freedom.
Proving them wrong or proving yourself right?
Proving myself right.
Control or surrender?
It's nice to be in control.
Legacy or peace?
Peace.
Darren, with that, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and for talking about your story. I know there's a lot more to your story that we didn't get to cover. There was still tons of questions. Maybe we need to do part two. But what I wanted to show people is that, behind every headline is a human being, and growth isn't glamorous. It's uncomfortable. It's lonely at times, and it's sacred. And I want to thank you for showing us what it looks like to choose a path that you chose, overcoming the struggles, overcoming everything, even your major ugly nose. And, you didn't let that throw you to the floor. You continued. And are there any last parting words that you would want to leave the audience with?
Yeah, just keep going. Keep building. Keep your head up. My phrase here is, sometimes the moment you're closest to failing completely is actually the moment you're closest to breaking through. And in that moment of pain and suffering, it's really hard to want to keep going, but you should. Don't give up. Businesses only fail when founders quit. And sometimes businesses do need to fail. Sometimes you might be in the wrong business. You might not have the right approach. But other times it's a game of, who lasts the longest. And it's a game of survival. And that takes a lot of resilience and grit. So just keep going.
Thank you for that. I think that message was meant for everyone, including myself. We want to thank the audience, everyone that tuned in. Again, Darren Marble, it was such a pleasure to have you on. Can't wait to bring you back. And remember, everyone, stay unscripted. And until next time, don't forget to go follow Darren Marble on X at Darren Marble. And stay tuned for more, everyone. Good night, Darren.
Good night,
Bye,
Leslie.
everyone.
Thank you so much.